Good evening. This is attorney Jaime Papa with JVP Law, and today I'm going to focus on business owners. So I want to start with a warning, and really this entire discussion will be focused on this warning. So the owner and founder of a family law firm I used to work for used to say, always start with the beginning in mind. You know, this may seem like an obvious idea or statement, but in reality, legal issues can become quite complex. You know, so it's a great way to remind us as attorneys, hey, look, you know, the answer you're looking for may be there. However, start from the beginning and work your way, you know, upward, outward. However, so for a corporate business attorney, and for commercial litigators, you know what this means you get to start with the business owner or owners, or the business entity or entities, trying to determine, you know, if there's an issue there, and then work your way out. For example, if I were to take on a business transactional client, business law, corporate law, right? The first thing I'm going to do when I meet with that client and they hire me is I'm going to look into all their formation documentation, right? I'm going to check with the Secretary of State, make sure that there's no issues with filings, right? Which is just the very basic, right? But then move on to the actual agreements themselves and find out if they're anticipating the actual harm that generally occurs for business owners, right? The obvious and then the unobvious, right? As a commercial litigator, what I'm going to be doing, you know, in a suit, you know, maybe it's a real estate transaction gone wrong, or I don't know, a medley of different lawsuits, right, against whatever type of company. Let's just say a commercial real estate company of some sort, right? So I'm going to start, no matter what, well, if I'm going up against business, right, I'm going to start with looking into the filings, right? Maybe there's an issue with the filings, and you know there's a possibility that I can get into the personal assets of the individual I'm suing, right? So starting at the beginning in mind is starting from the beginning from a defensive or offensive posture. All right. So so over the years, really there's been a shift, right, in the legal world, largely due to the internet. Now, a position that used to be, you know, one that attorneys did regularly, probably for small and large, still for large, but for small as well, you know, the position of a business attorney, corporate attorney, outside counsel, right? That particular position, although still exists, I imagine the volumes of individuals calling those types of attorneys has decreased substantially with the age of the internet, right? And it's been replaced by you know, this attorney by template online forms, pumped out and produced by many online legal companies, right? Or a CPA completing the filings for an LLC or a corporation, nonprofit, whatever, or a friend doing it for you, or you doing it yourself, right? So for business transactional, business lawyers, business corporate lawyers, right, outside counsel for small businesses, right, that's really hurt. It's hurt. However, for commercial litigators, it's one of the greatest things that's ever happened, right? So if you're suing businesses, this is a great thing, because what's happening is it's created numerous legal issues, right? For one, most online vendors out there are providing, you know, a template document, right? Well, there are flaws with those template documents, right? Because they're pumping them out into many jurisdictions, right? With generic clause, generally allied generic clause, right? Anticipating generic problems, right? And litigators figure this out, right? So, you know, I can say certainly there are some online companies out there that when I know documentation is coming from one of them, I know exactly what I can do with that particular case and where I'm going to go, because I know the flaws on that documentation, right? Then we move on to your CPAs, right, who are filing the paperwork for you, you know, because maybe they're, from a tax perspective, you got the CPA involved, now they're filing, right? So the issues that occur there are also, you know, numerous, and I'm going to say endless, but definitely numerous, right? So CPAs don't look at filings from an attorney's lens. They look at it through an accountant's lens, right? So if a suit takes place against the company, right, they're not considering the blowback. In fact, I have a case currently where I may be suing a CPA because of an issue with an entity formation, right? That's creating a situation where I've received immense pressure from another attorney based on certain filings, right? So it is interesting, right? That and then in turn, it's generating me more business, right? Because now I have to defend something that really never should have had to have been defended had a corporate or transactional attorney just handled that portion of the business, right? And in addition, there's individuals doing themselves or having their friends do it, which leads to even more issues generally. Creating a situation where you have basically like a pro boxer versus almost like a child in the ring. It's ridiculous, right? But I mean, for those of us who practice business law, so I practice business law, I practice commercial litigation, estate planning. Although this hurts my transactional business, it's phenomenal for my commercial litigation practice. And then over time, imagines will swing where individuals may be more concerned with the transactional side, meaning they'll have attorneys just work for them, yearly to defend them, making it more painful for that litigator, right? The business transactional attorney, that corporate attorney, is the biggest enemy of the commercial litigator, really, right? Like they are, but because they can do things to make a commercial litigator's life extraordinarily painful. Things that, certainly I haven't seen template forms address, and, definitely I haven't seen CPAs address, or, business owners or their friends. So just something to note. All right, so my advice is to get yourself a business law attorney, a corporate attorney, an outside counsel or inside counsel for your business, right? And this advice isn't, helping me in the sense that my commercial litigation division brings in more money than my transactional division, right? The pricing in transactional is actually cheaper. So transactional being protecting you and anticipating what's going to happen to you in the future, right? It's cheaper to hire an attorney like me or I'm sure other business attorneys to do that type of work than it is to hire a commercial litigator. Commercial litigators come in an emergency. You need them. You have no choice, really. When you have a litigator, it's not really a matter of, are you getting what? It's just who you're going to choose, right? And especially for businesses, right, where you have to have an attorney to litigate, right? Transactionally, you have time. You have time because it's years, potentially, before you face this suit that you're not anticipating but likely will happen. And if you talk to transactional attorneys who are experienced, or even litigators, right, they could tell you right down the line exactly what will potentially occur. So a few notes here, right, of things that are just questions I have for you that hopefully encourage you to start to think more about hiring a transactional business law attorney for your business. But for one, I say, do you think you're unique because the owners you work with all started as friends, right? Happens often, right? I get a group of individuals, maybe 1, 2, 3, however many, or 4. They're friends, been maybe friends from childhood, right? And they want to start a business, right? And I mention things to construct that business a particular way to help defend them against, potentially an inevitable fallout, right? Maybe not, but generally from what I see, it's yes, right? So really working that relationship, similar to a marriage, and ensuring that the litigation that doesn't really occur between them, right? Another thing, do you think you're the greatest on earth at vetting employees, right? Well, there are a medley of issues, right, that occur with employees. And I know because I get a lot of calls from employees who want to file suits against their employers, and I do have suits prepared and ready to go against certain employers. Do you think contractors will treat you fairly because you looked each other's in the eyes and did a handshake deal, right? That's kind of an old way to do business. Whatever, it's a new way too, right? Some people just like that. They like, I give them a handshake, look me in the eyes, and we had an understanding, right? Well, do you? And I have plenty of stories of situations where that didn't really work out as everyone thought it would, right? Because what's not on your side generally is time, right? Over time, things happen in people's lives, both personally and professionally, that change the way they engage with certain people over time. It's very hard to anticipate what's going to happen. That's why if you set off your relationship with strong agreements, you don't necessarily have to worry about, hey, we're friends, or hey, we had an agreement. You can just rest confidently knowing that it's going to go your way, right? Or at least you can anticipate what is going to occur. And another fallacy, do you think insurance wants to pay for your problems. That's not the case, right? Insurance companies don't exist to pay for you when an issue occurs, right? Like it's almost they're hoping that nothing occurs to you, right? So they can keep more of the money. They don't want to spend more money. They want to spend less money, right? So having an attorney review that insurance, look through it, make sure that it makes sense, that the policy makes sense, and on, because there's so many things that you can do, agreements you can sign that can get you into really horrible situations where you didn't know it at the time, but for example, you could get yourself into a situation where it costs a very small amount up front, but down the line, years later, it could be $1 million problem. And you had no idea, right? And of course it was you, so you won't blame yourself. You'll say, oh, well, I should have known better. But really, you could have known better. Had you gone to an attorney, a business attorney, or corporate attorney, they would have certainly looked at that, and you may not even know that they guided you a different direction for that particular reason. You may not even know. But I guarantee, if you were in the horrible situation that could be, you'd be so grateful, or if you knew any sense of it, you'd be so grateful that attorney basically set in motion documentation to prevent that massive pitfall. So, although this message maybe seems harsh, it comes from a good place. And it is true. I'm paid much more for commercial litigation than I am for business law or transactional work. And frankly, when I started my first business years ago, I wish somebody gave me this exact same advice. For me, I started using an online vendor, and it was so difficult to get the business going because I wasn't even sure that the legal piece was done correctly, right? I had a lot of questions, and I tried to do it the quick way, the expedient way. And frankly, I learned too that what I paid was essentially what I would have paid an attorney anyway, maybe a little more, but just a lot of assumptions on my part that I shouldn't have had. So hopefully you listen to this message. Hopefully, you at least engage a business law attorney or corporate attorney, engage in a conversation, see what they have to say, and see how they can help. Have a great evening.